In the vast blood-stained tapestry of Roman history, few names chill the soul like that of Caligula. Not just for his crimes, but for what his reign reveals about power, fear, and the fragile shell of civilization. This is not the story of one man's madness. It's the autopsy of a society devoured from within by the very institution it worshipped, the empire. Before he was a tyrant, before he called himself a god, Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus was a child in a soldier's camp. The son of Germanicus, Rome's beloved general, he marched in miniature armor beside hardened legionnaires who nicknamed him Caligula, meaning little boots. But under the armor of childhood adoration lay the rod of dynasty. His family was slaughtered by Paranoia. His mother, Agrippina the Elder, starved in exile. His brothers, accused of treason, died in prison. Only Caligula survived, not because he was strong, but because he was underestimated. Even the Emperor Tiberius, who took him in, sensed something dark. He once said, "I am nursing a viper for Rome." He wasn't wrong. This early exposure to violence, betrayal, and manipulation shaped him. He learned that love was transactional and power was absolute. He learned that to survive in Rome meant to play a game of masks, of silence, of hidden knives. When Caligula took the throne in 37 AD at age 24, Rome rejoiced. He gave bonuses to guards, freed prisoners, and made grand gestures of goodwill. To a city sickened by Tiberius's suffocating rule, he was a breath of divine air. But the air grew colder, his smile too wide, his laughter too long. He watched gladiators die with gleeful obsession. At night, he would return to empty amphitheaters, walking alone among the sand-stained blood, as if feeding on the echoes of death. What began as charm soon felt like theater, a carefully rehearsed show. He bathed in attention and admiration, but his gaze, when no one was watching, grew vacant. The man that people thought they loved was already disappearing into something else. No one knows what illness struck Caligula. Some say encephalitis. Others claim epilepsy. But the truth is clear: the man who rose from that bed was no longer mortal in his own eyes. He claimed to speak with gods. Jupiter whispered to him. Neptune sent visions. The people who once prayed for his recovery now prayed for his death. Their hopes had conjured a monster. He began dressing as gods, sometimes Jupiter, sometimes Venus, forcing senators to kneel and kiss his feet. He declared his sister Drusilla a goddess after her death, criminalizing laughter or bathing during mourning. Every gesture became sacred, every defiance sacrilege. And the court, once a place of policy and diplomacy, became a theater of his madness. Courtiers learned to smile when terrified, laugh when horrified, applaud while mourning. Caligula had turned the empire into a twisted stage where survival meant performance. Caligula weaponized desire. He summoned noble women to his bed, raped them in front of their husbands, and then offered crude reviews of their performance over dinner. He turned palaces into brothels, used senators' daughters as instruments of humiliation, and reduced the proudest names in Rome to whimpering toys in his games. He defiled not only people, but the very rituals Rome held sacred. Sex became religion. Rape became worship. He claimed his phallus was divine and made others kneel in reverence. His sisters Drusilla Agrippina the Younger and Julia Livilla were rumored to be his concubines. He openly fondled them at banquets, sometimes offering them to visiting dignitaries. What was once whispered in corners was now displayed like trophies. And when children became part of his spectacle, when even innocence was dragged into horror, Rome crossed the threshold into a living nightmare. Caligula bled the Roman treasury dry. He spent fortunes on games, temples, and insane construction like a bridge across the Bay of Naples, just so he could ride across it in Alexander the Great's breastplate. When gold ran out, he turned to murder. The wealthy were accused of imaginary crimes, executed and stripped of their estates. Taxes became surreal on marriages, lawsuits, and even the act of staying silent. To be rich in Caligula's Rome was to be marked for death. To be poor was to be powerless. The empire had become a slaughterhouse where blood fed the machine. He even taxed brothels, gambling, and lawsuits, not just for revenue, but for control. Every pleasure and every transaction now bore his mark. Every coin passed through the fingers of a mad god. Though Caligula had no military experience, he declared himself Rome's greatest general. In one campaign, he ordered his soldiers to collect seashells from the shore, claiming them as spoils of war against Neptune. His legions, once the pride of Rome, were humiliated. Officers crawled in mud at his command. Veterans were executed for slowing their pace beside his chariot. He dreamed of invading Britain, only to abandon it at the last moment, declaring a fictional victory. And the people, desperate to believe, cheered anyway. What choice did they have? He claimed the gods spoke battle plans to him in dreams. Entire legions stood idle while he communed with invisible forces. Battles were delayed. Campaigns collapsed. The Roman war machine, the envy of the world, was being sabotaged from within. By 41 AD, even the Praetorian Guard, the elite bodyguards of the emperor, had seen enough. Led by Cassius Chaerea, they plotted his death. Humiliated one time too many, and fearing for Rome's future, they planned their strike. January 24th, Caligula walked through a narrow palace corridor unguarded. The blade struck fast. 30 wounds, each one a scream from a silenced soul. According to legend, his last words were, "I am still alive." But even gods must die. His corpse was hidden, his statues torn down, his name etched from records. But the shadow he cast never faded. Rome tried to erase Caligula's name. Statues smashed, records destroyed, a decree of damnatio memoriae, damnation of memory. But history remembers. Caligula's story is not merely about madness. It's about the vacuum left when institutions fail, when fear becomes governance, when citizens surrender their voice. It's a reminder that the worst monsters are not born. They are built brick by silent complicity in the cult of unchecked power. In every age, every empire, every government, there is a Caligula waiting. And there must be those who dare to say no more. Caligula's fall was not just the end of a tyrant. It was Rome staring into a mirror and seeing what it had become, a civilization so blinded by ceremony and chained by fear that it applauded until the very last scream. His death was a cleansing, but also a reckoning. The lesson is timeless. Tyranny rarely arrives in chains, it comes cloaked in applause. It offers security, spectacle, and strength while quietly dismantling freedom, truth, and dignity. The story of Caligula warns us that civilization is not a guarantee. It's a choice made daily in how we hold power accountable, how we protect the vulnerable, and how we confront cruelty, even when it wears a crown. If Rome in all its grandeur could fall into the hands of madness, so can we. And that is why we must remember. We must remember not to fear the darkness, but to recognize the torch we must each carry. So the next Caligula never rises.